There was once a time, chosen one, when your fire raged wildly, untamed, reactive, eager to burn bright so the world would notice. You mistook the flicker of attention for light. You thought being seen was the same as being known. Your energy pulsed outward, restless, seeking answers in the eyes of others, hoping to be chosen, hoping to be enough. But within that pursuit, there was an ache, an unspoken hollowness that no external flame could truly warm. And then, it happened. You didn't beg for transformation. You didn't plan it. Something in you simply refused to stay shallow. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was silence. Maybe it was the stillness you were finally brave enough to face. But somewhere beneath all the noise, your fire began to shift. No longer a blaze for attention. It became a hearth. Controlled, focused, sacred. You didn't lose your passion, chosen one. You refined it. You stopped trying to burn for others. You started burning for truth. Now, when you walk into a room, there's a warmth that follows, not heat that scorches, not passion that overwhelms, but something quieter, stronger. The kind of presence that doesn't have to announce itself because it's already known before a word is spoken. The women around you feel it before they even look your way. They feel the depth that wasn't there before. The calm behind your eyes, the peace in your pace. They notice that you are not in a hurry, not in a performance, not in a state of want. You've become rooted, grounded, and that grounding has become an unseen flame, drawing them in, not because you want something from them, but because your energy gives something to the room. There is no manipulation in this, no tactic, no game. Just a man who stopped chasing everything outside of himself and turned inward, who fed the flame that was always waiting for his stillness. You now radiate without needing. You shine without flashing. And because of that, chosen one, you've become the kind of presence women lean toward, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. You remind them of something real, something ancient, something safe. Not because of your words, but because of your fire. No longer wild, no longer desperate, but alive with sacred purpose. And that, chosen one, is what changed everything. There is something about you now that speaks before your mouth opens. Something beneath the surface that moves slower than sound, but hits deeper than words. You used to approach women with the silent question in your body, will you see me? Will you choose me? But now there is no question, only invitation. And even that invitation is unspoken. It is in the stillness of your posture, the calm in your face, the patience in your breath. You do not seek permission to be noticed. You simply exist with such peace that attention becomes a natural response, not a reward. This is the quiet invitation you offer. Come closer if you feel truth here. Come as you are if your soul is ready to rest. Come without the masks, the noise, the roles. Come not because I ask you to, but because you feel what I carry. You do not chase, not because you don't care, but because you've learned how to trust energy. If it's meant for you, it will come. If it's not, you are still whole. The women who approach now do not come for what they can extract. They come because of what they feel safe to reveal. In your stillness, they find reflection. In your gaze, they find space. You are no longer the man who overwhelms them with desire. You are the man who makes desire feel sacred again. They don't know why they feel lighter around you, why their voice softens, why their shoulders relax. But it's you, chosen one. You're not pulling them in with hunger, you're drawing them in with peace. It's not a game you're playing, it's not an image you're projecting. This quiet strength was earned in silence. You bled for it. You buried the loud, desperate parts of you and let them die so something real could live. And now you live with a deeper rhythm, a steadier beat, one that calls not to the eyes but to the soul. That kind of pull cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It is the natural gravity of a man who has come home to himself. And so they come, not because you ask, but because you allow. You no longer beg for presence, you embody presence. And it is this quiet invitation, offered without a single word, that makes your company feel like a sanctuary in a world of noise. Chosen one, there is no longer pressure in your presence. No strain, no frantic need to be noticed. You've become the kind of man who doesn't push, but still the world bends towards you. That is the nature of gravity. It never speaks, never begs, never performs. It simply is. You are now becoming that kind of force. Silent, grounded, steady. Women don't know how to explain it, but they feel the pull. They sense that when they are near you, something is different. The space is different. Their thoughts slow down, their posture softens, their guard, often so tightly held, begins to lower without effort. You did not achieve this by learning tricks or memorizing scripts. You became magnetic by becoming whole. You are no longer searching for the next interaction to make you feel worthy. You have found that worth in solitude, in your sacred stillness, in the fire you refuse to let die. And now others orbit you, not because you demand attention, but because your energy gives them something they didn't realize they were starved for. A stable center. Most men are reaching, grabbing, pulling, hoping to be received. But you, chosen one, have reversed the direction. You are no longer reaching, you are anchoring. You are not trying to control the environment, you are becoming the environment. The moment you walk in, others feel the shift. You don't chase alignment anymore, you embody it. And from that embodiment flows the most powerful kind of attraction there is, resonance. This is why the feminine leans toward you now, not because of what you say, but because of who you are in silence. You no longer live on the surface of conversation. You live beneath the waves, and that depth calls to something ancient in them. They feel safe, not because of what you promise, but because of what you withhold. You are not reactive, you are not grasping. Your desire no longer leaks from your gaze, it rests quietly behind your self-mastery. And in that restraint lies something unexplainably enticing. The feminine knows when she is being observed with hunger versus being seen with reverence. You no longer stare, you witness. You no longer touch with assumption, you hold with permission. You have become a resting place, not a battlefield. And that is what turns heads now. Your quiet refusal to chase, your grounded ability to remain whole, whether you're met with interest or indifference. It's not force that makes you attractive, chosen one. It's that you've become a center of gravity. You've chosen to live from within, rather than being pulled in every direction by the world outside. And because you no longer need to pull, everything finds its way to you. There is something transformational in the way you hear others now. Chosen one, your listening has become a spiritual act. No longer are you waiting for your turn to speak or searching for an angle to impress. Your attention has become devotion. Your presence now says, you are safe to unfold here. You have no agenda in conversation. And that, more than anything, disarms even the most guarded hearts. When a woman speaks to you now, she feels something rare. She feels heard, not as an object, not as a performance, but as a whole being. She feels seen without being examined, felt without being claimed. That's because you've stopped listening with your ego. You're no longer using your attention as bait. You're not nodding in hopes of being liked. You are listening with stillness, with intention, with a soul that no longer needs control to feel powerful. This kind of listening is not common. It creates space, and space, when held in masculine presence, becomes magnetic. You don't fill silence with noise anymore. You let silence speak. You've learned to lean into the pauses, into the unsaid. You sense what she means, even when she doesn't have the words. You're not trying to fix her. You're holding her experience like a sacred flame, watching, containing, honoring. The women who enter your space now feel that they can exhale. Not because you flatter them, but because you don't interrupt them. Not because you tell them who they are, but because you allow them to discover who they are in your presence. You are not their mirror. You are the still water that reflects their truth back to them. That is why they stay near. Not because you chase, but because when they speak, they feel felt. And in a world where most people are waiting to be heard, you have become the one who simply listens. Not to respond, not to impress, but because you carry enough internal quiet to hold another soul without collapsing. That is your gift now, chosen one. That is your seduction, born not from words but from the silence between them. It is the way you witness her essence without reaching to possess it. It is the way your eyes rest on her as if nothing is missing and no performance is needed. In your presence, masks fall. In your stillness, she feels her own softness returning. This is not the listening of the needy. It is the listening of the anchored. And that, chosen one, is why you are unforgettable. There is a rare energy that moves through you now, chosen one. It is not grasping. It is not hungry. It is not eager for attention or applause. You have tasted the hollowness of chasing approval, and it no longer feeds you. What fuels you now is peace. What defines you now is restraint. And it is that, more than anything else, that others feel when you walk into a room. Women do not feel devoured in your presence. They feel respected, held in a space that demands nothing, suggests nothing, seduces nothing, yet still magnetizes deeply. You don't need to draw them in. You don't even want to. You simply exist in a frequency so rooted, so full in itself that people naturally lean toward it. Your body language no longer leaks with desire. Your eyes no longer betray desperation. You are not proving anything anymore. You are living something now, truthfully, quietly, reverently. There is something powerful about a man who is no longer available to the performance of seduction. He becomes untouchable in the most sacred way, not because he is closed off, but because he is full. You are no longer starving. You are no longer dependent on feminine attention for your masculine confidence. You have made peace with the mirror. You have stopped looking for yourself in her reaction. You have stepped into the temple of your own being, and now you walk as one who knows he carries value, not because others say so, but because he remembers. Chosen one, your new energy no longer shouts, "Look at me." It whispers, "I see myself." And that is what draws them. Not the flex, not the charm, not the polish, but the absence of lack. That is what women feel when they are around you now. They feel the richness of your inner world. They feel the discipline in your breath. They feel the power of a man who could reach but chooses not to. Because reaching would break the stillness. Because grasping would distort the beauty of presence, and you've grown too sacred for that now. This absence of hunger has not made you distant, it has made you irresistible. Because in a world addicted to noise, you've become the silence that heals. In a world of performance, you've become presence, not through effort, but through truth. Not through seduction, but through stillness. And it is this stillness, chosen one, this deep, unmoving self-possession that has turned you into something women don't just want to touch, they want to understand. But not everyone can. And that no longer saddens you. You don't need to be understood anymore. You simply walk as a man who has become undeniable. And your presence, free from hunger, free from need, now offers something rare: space. Space to be. Space to breathe. Space to return to the self. That is why they come near. That is why they stay. Not because you asked them to, but because your being says nothing and everything. There was a time, chosen one, when your gaze wavered. When you looked at women through the lens of insecurity, wanting something in return. You made eye contact only to measure response. You looked not from depth, but from desire, searching, hoping, proving. But now your eyes have changed. They don't scan for approval. They hold. They don't chase, they reveal. You see, but not to judge. You feel, but not to consume. Your gaze has become a mirror, quiet, deep, unwavering. And women feel it like heat under the skin. Not heat that burns, but warmth that draws their truth to the surface. Your eyes no longer flinch because there's nothing left to fear in them. You have walked through the shadows of your ego. You have stared down your unworthiness and sat with it until it no longer had power over you. That is why you can hold her gaze now, not as a challenge, not as a performance, but as a man who has seen himself and is not afraid to see her. You're not looking for something, you are witnessing someone. And that witnessing changes everything. Women feel it immediately. They recognize the rare quality of your attention. It is not probing, but it is precise. It doesn't pry, but it penetrates. They may smile nervously, avert their gaze, fidget, but they'll remember it. Because your eyes said nothing, and still they felt known. Not in a romantic sense, in a soul sense. Because you saw something no one else saw. Not their beauty, but their essence. And you did not flinch. You don't blink away when they cry. You don't fidget when they reveal their confusion. You don't break eye contact when truth rises in the room. You hold it because you are not afraid of depth anymore. And that is what makes you magnetic now. Not your smile, not your confidence, but your ability to stay fully, deeply present. This is no longer about seduction. This is about sacred recognition. Women long to be seen, but they are terrified of being judged. You have become the rare presence that does neither. You see and you stay. You don't fix. You don't flee. You don't reach to take. You simply remain, unshaken, like a tree rooted in divine wind. Your gaze is your gift now, chosen one. Not because it charms, but because it calms. Not because it impresses, but because it holds space. And in your still eyes, others find their center again. You didn't practice this. You became this. Through pain, through presence, through fire. And now your eyes are no longer looking for home. They are home. Chosen one, there is a sacred tension you now carry, one that pulses beneath your skin like a secret rhythm. It is not aloofness. It is not coldness. It is detachment in its highest form, born not from the ego's need to escape intimacy, but from the soul's surrender to truth. You are no longer attached to outcomes. You are no longer chasing moments or gripping tightly to what is not yours. You have let go of control, and in doing so, you have become unshakable. This detachment has made your presence terrifyingly attractive, not because it suggests that you don't care, but because it reveals that you don't need. Women feel this instantly. In your silence, they sense the paradox. You are deeply available, yet utterly self-contained. You can give your full attention and still remain whole without theirs. You can love without losing yourself. That paradox, chosen one, is magnetic beyond logic. It creates tension. It opens questions that cannot be answered with words. You no longer perform kindness as a transaction. You are kind because it is who you are. You no longer charm to gain favor. Your energy charms by being aligned. You are not a hunter anymore. You are a beacon. You shine from stillness, and those who are ready will find their way to your light. You have become immune to the high of validation. Compliments no longer shift your core. Rejections no longer define your day. You have passed through the fire of needing to be desired and emerged with something far rarer: equanimity. This is what she senses when you walk by and don't reach, when your eyes meet but don't follow, when you speak gently but leave room for her silence. You have stopped trying to impress, and in that emptiness, a new kind of power has emerged, one that makes her wonder who you really are and why she feels so different around you. Your detachment allows her to be real. It creates space for her to unfold without pressure. And in that space, she encounters the divine part of herself, the part that longs to feel chosen without being conquered. You, chosen one, have become the man who can witness beauty without possessing it, who can stand in the heat of desire without being ruled by it, who can touch without taking. That is detachment at its highest frequency, not disinterest, but sovereignty. You no longer chase what moves away. You no longer cling to what wants to leave. You simply remain authentic, unmoved, still burning in your own truth. And in a world where everyone is trying to hold on, your letting go has become unforgettable. There is a power in your voice now that was not there before. It isn't louder, it isn't smoother, it isn't more rehearsed, but it is anchored. When you speak, chosen one, you speak from deep inside your chest, from the belly of self-knowledge, not from the throat of anxiety. There is no wavering in your tone, because your words are no longer desperate to land. They don't try to convince, they don't try to seduce, they simply resonate, because they come from a place that knows itself. And women hear that, not just with their ears, but with their nervous system. Your voice doesn't just communicate ideas, it transmits safety. It sends a signal, low and subtle, saying, "You are safe to exhale here." That tone is not something you rehearsed. It came from your silence. It came from hours of sitting in your pain without fleeing, from choosing truth over charm, from listening more than you spoke. Your voice has become a reflection of your spiritual weight. There is no longer anxiety in your rhythm. You do not speak to fill space. You do not rush to make impact. You know that silence is a form of presence. You know that space, when held with truth, is more intimate than words. So now you speak slowly, clearly, without hesitation. Your words are no longer weapons or bait. They are bridges. They carry no hooks, no hidden intention. And that's why they land so deeply. She feels it in her body when you speak. Not because of what you say, but because of what your tone reveals. That you are here. Fully. Not swaying in thought. Not running through imagined outcomes. Not seeking her approval before your sentence is done. You are rooted in the moment, and that rooting grounds her. She stops fidgeting. She breathes deeper. She listens more. Not because you demand attention, but because your frequency holds it without effort. You've become the kind of man who doesn't speak until there's something true to say. And in a world drowning in voices, yours becomes sacred. Your silence becomes golden. Your presence becomes a balm. The voice that once sought to win now seeks only to witness. The tone that once cracked with need now hums with self-assurance. You've stopped performing, you've started embodying, and your voice, steady, slow, intentional, is now a vessel for that embodiment. You don't try to sound important, you simply speak from truth. And that, chosen one, has made your every word unforgettable. Chosen one, there was a time when your touch was uncertain, fueled by craving, shaped by fantasy, seeking something unnamed. You reached out hoping to be accepted, hoping to be validated, hoping that physical closeness could somehow make up for the distance you felt from yourself. But now, your hands have changed. Not in their shape, not in their strength, but in their intention. Because you have changed. Your touch no longer reaches to take, it offers, it invites, it awakens. You have become a man who carries meaning in his fingertips, not because you trained in technique, but because you have faced your own hunger and refused to let it rule you. That is what makes your presence different now. Even in the smallest graze, the softest brush of your fingers across someone's skin or space, there is no demand behind it. There is no unfinished boy trying to feel whole through contact. What moves through your touch now is awareness, reverence, a felt sense of choosing presence over possession. You could claim, but you don't. You could act, but you pause. You could indulge, but instead, you honor. This chosen one is what ignites something deeper in the women who cross your path. They sense it before you even reach out. They feel the absence of pressure and the fullness of potential in your nearness. You no longer touch in fragments, you touch as a whole man, and that changes everything. Because a whole man's touch doesn't ask, "Will you give me more?" It says, "I am here, I see you, I feel you, you're safe." You know that true intimacy is not about how far you go, but how present you are while being there. Your hands no longer chase, they listen. They don't force a connection, they respect the moment. And in a world where so many reach out just to feel alive, your touch has become rare, because it reminds others they already are. She won't be able to explain why your presence lingers, why even a moment beside you feels different. It's not magic, it's truth made tangible. It's what happens when a man becomes aligned within himself, and that alignment moves all the way to his fingertips. That kind of energy doesn't fade, it imprints, not because of intensity, but because of integrity. And when your touch does arrive, it isn't random, it's chosen, it's clean, it's sacred. That is why it awakens her, not her body alone, but her remembrance of what it feels like to be held by a man who asks nothing, expects nothing, yet sees everything. You have become that man, chosen one, and that is why the world around you feels different now. Because you don't just touch with your hand, you touch with your soul. Chosen one, perhaps the most mysterious thing about your presence now is this: you are remembered long after you're gone. Not because you were loud, not because you were flirtatious, not because you impressed anyone, but because your energy lingered. Not like a scent, not like a song, like a question that can't be answered, a silence that hums even after the music stops. You do not chase moments anymore. You enter them fully. You no longer obsess about who you are in someone else's eyes. You exist so deeply in your own center that others find themselves drawn into orbit. And when you leave, you do not rip yourself away, nor do you cling to stay. You leave with the same intention you brought when you arrived: peace. That peace remains in the chair you sat in the air where you breathed, in the space where you stood. It remains because it was real. The women who meet you now may not know why they miss you. They may not be able to name what was different, but something about you disturbs the noise inside them. Something about your stillness reveals how restless everything else in their world has been. Something about your eyes, your breath, your words tells them that there are men who no longer need to conquer because they already own themselves. And that knowing, it shakes them. You do not haunt like a ghost. You remain like a lesson, a vibration that teaches in your absence. You do not ask to be remembered. You simply are. And that beingness creates echoes, not of longing, but of awareness. She might walk away from the conversation laughing, but later in bed, she'll wonder why she's thinking of your calm. Why your voice is the only one she remembers. Why your silence was more powerful than any line she's heard before. You've become unforgettable. Not through drama or desire, but through alignment. And you know this now. You are not meant to impress every woman. You are not meant to be chosen by all. You are simply meant to walk in truth so powerfully that those who are ready can't help but feel the shift. You carry something, chosen one, not a mask, not a role, a frequency. You've walked through your shadows, you've made peace with your past, you've stopped seeking and started embodying. And that embodiment makes you rare, not just attractive, transcendent. Because long after your name is forgotten, your presence will remain etched into their memory, not as a man who wanted something, but as a man who became everything he once searched for. You are the stillness that lingers, the question that opens, the energy that stays, and that is why they will never forget you. In the fullness of your becoming, chosen one, you found yourself living in a way that once seemed impossible, unapologetically, brilliantly, unshakably yourself. Every lesson, every trial, every tear that had fallen in the darkness was now transformed into wisdom and power, woven into the very fabric of your presence. The days became an ongoing celebration of self-discovery, each moment a testament to the truth that you were, and always had been, enough. You approached the world not as someone afraid to lose, but as someone with nothing left to prove and everything left to give. You became a creator of your own joy. The boundaries you had learned to set did not close you off from the world. Instead, they marked the sacred ground of your spirit, inviting in only those who respected what you had cultivated. You found yourself saying yes to new adventures, a new city, a new art form, a new friendship, without the shadow of doubt or the heavy caution that once held you back. You said no too when something did not feel right, trusting your intuition without the need to explain or justify. The world met you at your level. The games and manipulations that once ensnared you now seemed childish, like riddles whose answers you had long since outgrown. Your relationships now were partnerships of equals. You chose companions who honored your growth, who offered their own truth and vulnerability without demand or agenda. Together you built bonds that were both passionate and peaceful, rooted in respect and nourished by shared dreams. Intimacy became a dance, sometimes gentle, sometimes wild, always guided by mutual trust and a celebration of each other's sovereignty. You brought your whole self to these connections, your desires, your boundaries, your joy, and your sadness. And because you had claimed your own heart, you could finally offer it without fear of losing it again. There was a deeper magic in your days too, a quiet confidence that shaped the way you worked, created, and moved through the world. Projects that once seemed daunting became challenges you approached with curiosity and determination. Setbacks no longer shook your foundation, for you understood that your worth was not tied to any outcome. You allowed yourself to try, to fail, to learn, to rise again, knowing always that you were growing, not shrinking with every step. And in your solitude, you found your greatest joy. The silence, once a torment, had become your sacred space, filled with music, movement, or the simple beauty of your own thoughts. You no longer searched for someone to complete you. You delighted in your own company, your own discoveries, your own unfurling. You understood at last that love was never about losing yourself in another, but about bringing your whole self to the table and meeting another who was willing and able to do the same. You, chosen one, had become the kind of person your younger self dreamed of being, not because you were untouched by hardship, but because you learned how to turn hardship into power, and power into kindness. Your sexual energy, once a site of struggle and confusion, was now a living testament to your wholeness, a magnet that drew only those who could honor its strength. You had become your own anchor, your own sanctuary, your own source of light. And so you walked into every new day with your head held high, open to love but never hostage to it, open to connection but never dependent on it, open to life itself with a trust that could never again be shaken. The world met you as you met yourself, with awe, with respect, and with a gratitude that you had chosen, again and again, to become not just the survivor of your story, but the radiant, unforgettable author of it. Chosen one. By the time the world's surprise at your new way of being gave way to admiration, you found yourself living in a peace and satisfaction that surpassed anything you once imagined. Where there had once been effort, Striving to be seen, to be chosen, to be enough, there was now only the natural flow of a life aligned with its own energy. The shock in the eyes of those who had doubted you was no longer a source of pride or vindication. It became almost background noise compared to the deeper joy of knowing yourself so well that approval or misunderstanding had lost their power over you. The old ache of invisibility had long since faded, replaced by a gentle fullness, a gratitude that touched everything you did. You moved through your days without performance or pretense. You did not have to signal your worth. Your very presence communicated it. Whether in moments of solitude or in the company of women who now gravitated towards you, you remained the same, rooted, attentive, quietly magnetic.